What's up, gamers? My name is Alistair, and the game you're watching is DLC Quest by Going Loud Studios. This is not by accident, as today I want to talk about an issue that has been more and more prevalent in the gaming industry. Paid downloadable content, or DLC. In the early days, PC gamers used to modify games with texture packs, new maps, different weapons, and more. These mods were created for free to enrich and expand upon what the developer made. They did this to add value and longevity to a title which they loved. A few PC titles from the early days of modern gaming that were heavily modded were Quake, Unreal, and Half-Life. Many might argue that the modding scene was the reason that these games were as successful as they were. As sequels came out, and as new titles launched from the mid to late 90s to the early 2000s, modding became part of gaming life. There were, and still are, mod repositories online, and the implementation of the mods is very easy. In the console world, it was in 98 and 99 when the Sega Dreamcast hit the market, boasting dial-up online capability. This was the birth of DLC. Quite underwhelming, as not all titles were online capable, and DLC was, for the most part, patches and other minor things. Bandwidth and storage were an issue with the console, which sported expensive and low-capacity storage cards. In 2000, Sony released the PlayStation 2, but it didn't ship with a network adapter or hard drive. These were made available after some time, and later games could be played online, though DLC wasn't much of a feature to be found. In 2001, Microsoft released the Xbox, which had a network adapter and a proper hard drive, thus a real step forward to online content. A year later, an Xbox Live came to be, at which point games and DLC alike could be downloaded easily. As the 360 and the PS3 came out, only online games and DLC for online and disc-based games became normal. People were pretty much okay with this. In 2005, as Steam became an established online retailer for the PC, it became common for gamers to buy their games online, cutting out the need for brick-and-mortar retailers. For consoles, the disc is still an integral part of the paradigm. So far, nothing is really bad about this. Games can be purchased online, downloaded, and stored digitally to make things easier for those with the bandwidth and storage. It helps the game developers release more content for their game to make more money and to provide their users with replayability. For example, a first-person shooter map pack comes out 3 months later for an extra $15. It adds several new maps and game modes. Players will feel the game is revitalized. And at least it's only $15. I mean, a new game is $60, right? Then we know that we are getting 25% more of a game that we actually really like. In my opinion, this sweet spot did last for a few years. But as of late, it seems that developers and publishers are getting greedy. Or lazy. Over the last few years, it feels as though instead of just making afterthought content as DLC, games now come out at full price, with pieces missing, or an inexcusably brief campaign. Simultaneously, the game launches with, guess what? DLC, with the missing pieces. That's just what we were looking for. But it costs money! This is a new low in the gaming industry. DLC used to be optional extra material that real fans of the game could get more out of a title that they really liked. It was never meant to force or trick customers to buy a game and then they realized it was not content complete, that they now need to spend $15 more. To remove what should be day one launch material and have it as paid release day or day one DLC, that is hurting the consumer. Maybe it's time to just come out and say that games are $65 now, not $60. Are we at the point at which games cost so much to make that selling millions of copies isn't enough to make a profit without doing these nefarious activities? Or are the games actually profitable, but there are some middlemen to blame? Not so much on the PC, but for the console market, used game sales are resulting in poorer published game sales. As games age and their prices go down, people tend to pick them up. So if $60 new was too much for a certain title, maybe $39 after 6 months is a bit more reasonable, or $25 after a year. Stores that sells used games emulate this progression, but generally a bit earlier than the developer or publisher would hope for. The result? Used games are cheaper sooner than aged devaluation. And, of course, used games give nothing back to the developer or publisher. So, is that, on top of piracy, causing developers and publishers to lose money? Of course it is. Enough money toward shady, scammy business practices to recoup some of this money? Nobody knows for sure. The flip side to this same coin is the concept of pre-ordering games for quote-unquote bonus content. What is this bonus content in the pre-order? Well, in the case of Metro Last Light, part of the bonus content was a game mode called Ranger Mode. Ranger Mode is the highest difficulty mode, and as publisher Deep Silver is quoted to say, the way the game was meant to be played. So anybody that didn't pre-order the game doesn't get to play the game the way it is meant to be played. Unless, wait for it, they buy a $5 DLC. Pre-order bonus is like a sneaky gift wrapping paper for day one DLC. There is rarely any extra cost, which is good. In fact, maybe it's even cheaper to pre-order it than to buy it on day one. But the issue I have with pre-ordering like this is you really start to run the risk of buying a bad game. There are no reviews out there. Pre-ordering gives you no insight as to whether it's going to be any good or not. The only thing that's worse than getting ripped off by day one DLC is getting ripped off by pre-ordering a terrible game with no refunds. I don't know what bothers me more. In my opinion, none of this should be happening. DLC should truly be extra content, not fill in the gaps for more money. I remember pre-ordering games. I used to do it all the time. It was when there was no digital distribution in place, and on launch day, stores had finite copies for sale. You could pre-order with a store, so the store would guarantee that your copy had been reserved. This makes sense, right? Pre-ordering on something like Steam doesn't make sense. If a game does very well, it will not run out of copies. It's all digital. So what can we do as consumers? Stop buying it. Or email the companies. Or make videos on YouTube like this one. There are already others like it. Corporations are driven by profit. They don't do terrible things because they hate us. They do it because it is profitable. We must prove to them that it is not profitable, and they will stop doing it. Simple as that. So thank you all for watching, and I hope none of you get burnt by this awful business practice again.